Namaste everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So here I am on a very rainy day in India, and you can see Punjabi written behind me. Alright, it's not really India, it's the United Kingdom. But anyway, this is about the most Indian part of the UK, Southall, which is a district of London, and there's this huge Gurdwara behind me. Don't know what celebration they've got going on, but they've got all these butane gas canisters for cooking, and all the bunting up, the red and blue. And obviously they've got a lot of things in orange. They've got the big orange flag with a Sikh symbol somewhere. Ooh, maybe you see it better from this angle. Actually, I'll tell you what, it's too bright. If I reduce the brightness on this, you'll get a clearer image, but the screen is wet, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, and then behind me over here, you see this restaurant, formerly called the Glassy Junction, got the name up top, Glassy Junction, the old name, and that was the only place in the United Kingdom to accept Indian rupees when it was a pub, but I think it no longer is. So Southall has got a very large Indian community. I say that, obviously most of them are British citizens, a few of them are not. Obviously trying to be inclusive, called the British Indians, and that's true, they have to have the right to be here. But some people are Indian citizens who are resident in the United Kingdom, and so to call them British Indians would be inaccurate, because sometimes I try so hard to be inclusive, the person say, actually no, I'm not, I live here, I've been living for a long time. Not all the UK citizens or want to be. So that's that. It's had an Indian community since 1947, well, since independence. Why? Now, we're very close to Heathrow Airport, and a lot of people say, oh, well, that's because people land at Heathrow, and this is kind of the closest place to it, which is not really it, because in 1947, virtually nobody flew. That was prohibitively expensive, and people who immigrated to the United Kingdom almost all arrived by ship in those days. It's only the 70s that flights began to get a bit affordable, and obviously by the 90s, very affordable. But the reason is this, really, is because there was a man who was an officer in the British Indian Army who retired here, became the manager of a factory, and he recruited a lot of his former soldiers to serve with him. And there were Punjabis to a man, mostly Sikhs, and so that's that. So I say it's an Indian community. It's particularly a Punjabi community and mainly a Sikh one. Okay, there are people of Indian Hindu origin, Indian Muslim origin. There are other ethnic groups here. There are Somalis, for example. There are not many whites. This is a white minority area, and the whites who are here are often Eastern European. So white, ethnically British people are quite a small minority. So that's been a huge demographic change over the last 70 odd years. I'm not saying it's a bad one, it's neutral. Kate Middleton's mother was born here and indeed grew up here. I'm not sure all her life. Not here, the other side of the railway. What was I going to point out about that? There's no blue plaque on that house. Lodge of the Maharaja guest house. But so it wasn't probably till the 80s it became a majority South Asian. But anyway, the South Asian community here, they faced some pushback. There was some opposition to immigration, and most of it was on a flagrantly racist basis. It wasn't a rational opposition saying these were not bad people, but it was hamper the economy, and obviously didn't hurt the economy at all, especially in the early days. Look at Sikh symbols and perhaps I mispronounced it, and a cross here on the and obviously, where is it, the crescent moon? Maybe not. So because that's a funeral director's. So cremation was very much the exception in this country until the late 20th century, but it's actually come to be quite common. So anyway, lots of shops selling Indian food, and that's a lot of gold is stolen here. Now, unfortunately, the Indian community here suffered from some gold thieves. Well, these burglars breaking people's houses, knowing that Indian families tend to have a lot of gold, and they tend to be a very affluent community. If you divide the UK up by religious denomination, the richest group is the Jewish community, and the second richest group is the Sikh community, with this fantastic work ethic, this sense of mission when it comes to education, and obviously you just got to improve yourself. People who came to the UK, well, they were more self-confident, and I suppose just had a greater drive to achieve things. Not saying those who remained in India was anything wrong with them. Obviously some of them are very high achievers and talented as well. So that was that. And yet more Sikh flags. So, and there's the Hindu temple. I'm not sure how long I should go on, but I'm obviously wanting you to see things which would emphasize the South Asian character of the area. And I came up to this side of the bridge because it's more obvious this side. Cello, Tilda Basmati rice. What else can I point out? Oh yeah, a shop selling gold over the other side here in Southall. And in the railway station, it's had a sign certainly since '98 when I first came here. The sign's up in Punjabi as well as in English. What else could I point out? So quite near Hounslow, an area with a very large South Asian community as well. So there is a strong sense of community. People here, well, a lot of people have been here for a few generations now and know each other. And the South Asian community in the UK, having been here for quite a long time, is quite well established, increasingly self-confident. Used to be very much voting for the Labour Party, and it's still a Labour seat. It was Pyara Khabra, this Indian Sikh chap who'd been in the Indian Army in the Second World War. He was Labour MP for this constituency from 1992 onwards. Then he died in 2007, and a British Indian guy who was elected Labour MP for this same constituency. But anyway, the South Asian community is no longer so strongly pro-Labour as it used to be. Partly the Muslim section thereof was unhappy about the Iraq War, fighting Afghanistan and various other issues. Yeah, there are quite a few people in the South Asian community who would identify with the Conservative Party. If you go back to the 70s, about 90% of British Asians would have voted Labour, where it's a bit over 50%, so it's nothing like as high as it was, for various reasons. Feeling they've made greater acceptance from the Conservative Party. Enoch Poll is a more distant memory, because it's 51 years ago since his Rivers of Blood speech, and obviously just more prosperous. There's an element of economic self-interest in that. And obviously there are people of South Asian ethnicity who are now Conservative MPs. There's BBC Asian Network, sometimes broadcast from here on radio. Anyway, what else should I point out? Yeah, there's a Afghani Sikh community here. Look, Kabul. They're selling cloth, not meat, but never mind. They have not changed the sign. We'll get there eventually. Now, my barber. Well, barber is actually really from Bach, but as in a beard. Look, hair cutting, £5. I got it slightly wrong, actually, haircut. But anyway, that's a very good price. Most of London, you're paying £10 for that. I haven't paid £5 for a haircut since 2005. If you think barber, la barbe, as in shaving, you wouldn't have much business around that, as most men here are bearded. So I want to, in a fit of righteous rage, want to stick a beard onto me. But so there are not that many Gora log around here, but obviously everybody's welcome. So I'm not saying it's segregated, and in as much as communities live somewhat separate, that's voluntary, that there's no hostility. And a lot of the children here would go to other schools, often Christian schools, and the parents say, well, that's fine, they're not trying to convert my child, just go to the best one that's around. There's some schools which are specifically Sikh and have a Sikh ethos, not very many of them. There are a couple which are Hindu, but I think not here. I think more in North London, areas like Harrow, where there's more of a concentration of the Hindu community. So the Hindu community tend not to congregate in one particular area quite as much as the Sikh community. So it tends to be quite good relations between the two. But anyway, the Labour Party here in Southall, about 10 years ago, apparently there was a big row and split, and people say it really had nothing to do with UK politics. It was all about South Asian issues, about Jammu and Kashmir, and the Labour Party in Southall was dominated by Sikhs and Muslims, and they had a row, and quite a few of the Sikhs decamped to the Conservative Party. It's somewhat reversed. Remember in 2007 when David Cameron came here, met by several people elected to the local council, Sardarjis, and they were wearing blue turbans because blue is the colour of the Conservative and Unionist Party. Okay, Southall Town Hall. It was part of the borough of Ealing. Okay, is one of many districts of London. We don't really officially recognise districts, but rather than have about 100 districts, we've got boroughs. There are 32 boroughs of London. Anyway, I could carry on all day, but that is a little bit of taste of Southall. The most South Asian area of the United Kingdom, something like 60% South Asian origin, and as I say, most of the people of South Asian stock are British citizens, others are legally resident. Just a few people came here illegally, and it's actually very easy to live here, even if you couldn't speak English. If you spoke Punjabi or Hindi, you could easily get by. I've seen documentaries about them, and actually they're discovering, the streets are not paved in the old UK. If you're not here legally, it is very difficult. There are very few jobs you can do. I mean, obviously not allowed to do any job. People would pay you, but they'd be exploiting you. So are you really better off and then have to say, okay, fess up and try to go home. But they came here without a passport, and then they had quite a job persuading the Indian High Commission that they really were Indian citizens and to issue them with travel documents to allow them to return home. And some of them were sleeping out, they were homeless. Some of the Sikh community, well, they're running a charity to look after these people, to feed them, provide them with sleeping bags and things. And they were almost all men, things like that. Anyway, that's probably enough of a little taste of Southall, London.